2.50 बुद्धियुक्तो जहाति ha ube sukrita dushkrute tasmad yogaya yujasva yoga karmasu kaushalam. Okay. Madhurya Mataji is asking, please repeat Kevala Bhakti. Is it done only by sannyasis? Is it possible for us? No, it is for everybody. Kevala Bhakti basically means that only Bhakti. There is no karma or gnana. Kevala Bhakti means only Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. It is possible for anybody, provided we work towards it. We have to keep meditating on this. We have to make that the goal of our life. Then, of course, Krishna will give mercy. It is possible. Many devotees who are doing that in ISKCON already. So we should aim towards achieving that. 2.50 Buddhi yukto jahati ha ube sukrita dushkrite tasmad yogaya yujasva yoga karma sukaushalam. A man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad reactions even in this life. Therefore, strive for yoga, which is the art of all work. So Prabhupada is saying what, Krishna is saying what he will subsequently re-emphasize in the 18th chapter as Sarva Dharman Parityaja Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja Ham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Mokshayishyami. So here also, Sukrita Dushkrute, all good and bad reactions will be destroyed. Second chapter only is said. So why should we do all this? Why should we do yoga? Krishna is saying you should do yoga because you will get rid of all your reactions. And why is that important? That's important, otherwise we can't dedicate ourselves completely in the service of the Lord, because bhakti only starts when we come to Brahmabhuta. And Brahmabhuta means no sinful reactions. Since time immemorial, each living entity has accumulated various reactions of his good and bad work. As such, he is continuously ignorant of his real constitutional position. One's ignorance can be removed by the instruction of Bhagavad Gita, which teaches one to surrender unto Lord Krishna in all respects. Very important, in all respects, and become liberated from the chain victimization of action and reaction, birth after birth. So if we surrender, Sarvadharman Paritijya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Ham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Mokshayishyami. Arjuna is therefore advised to act in Krishna consciousness, the purifying process of resultant action. Purifying process, which means that once we act in Krishna consciousness, there is no resultant action. It is all purified. So there is no karma bandhana, karma phala. So result of bhakti, Krishna is already highlighting here. Both good and bad reactions even in this life. That is why second chapter is said the summary of Bhagavad Gita, because actually the end goal is already mentioned here. Previous verse said surrender. Now it is saying once you surrender, you get rid of all good and bad reactions in this life. And the next one kind of concludes. Verse 51 concludes this. Karmajam buddhi yukta hi palam tyaktva manishinaha janma bandhaminad mukta padam gacchantanamayam. By thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the results of work in the material world. In this way, they become free from the cycle of birth and death and attain the state beyond all miseries by going back to Godhead. So second chapter 51, go back to Godhead. Rest of the Bhagavad Gita is just highlighting these aspects more and more so that we can get a good understanding of the subject. But it's very clear. Liberated living entities belong to that place where there are no material miseries. Samashita e pada padapallava plavam mahatpadam punyesho murare pavam buddhir vatsapadam parampadam padam yatri padam natesham. For one who has accepted the abode of the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of the cosmic manifestation and is famous as Mukunda, or giver of Mukti, the ocean of the material world is like the water contained in a calf's footprint. Parampadam, or the place where there are no material miseries, or Vaikuntha, is his goal, not the place where there is danger in every step of life. Mukunda, Muktidayaka, Mukunda. Beautiful name, Mukunda. Owing to ignorance, one does not know that this material world is a miserable place. where there are dangers at every step. Out of ignorance, only less intelligent persons try to adjust to the situation by fruitive activities. This is very interesting. Because even before coming to Krishna consciousness, I also thought this was the goal of life. Keep adjusting the situation. Oh, new situation comes. Okay, now you change yourself. Thinking that the resultant actions will make them happy. So the whole idea is somehow, adjust karo and then you'll feel happy. You'll be happy. Try to become happy by adjusting to the situations. They do not know that no kind of material body anywhere within the universe can give life without miseries. The miseries of life, namely birth, death, old age, and disease, are present everywhere within the material world. But one who understands this, his real constitutional position as the eternal servant of the Lord, and thus knows the position of the personality of Godhead, engages himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Somebody might ask, okay, life of Brahma is so long. Okay. So yes, it is long. There are no diseases. There is literally no old age. And really for Brahma, there's no death as such. After he dies, he goes to the spiritual world. But still, he is anxious. He has so much of anxieties about, how this material world, so many miseries, people are suffering, people are not turning towards Krishna. So the higher, jivas, they have their own reasons for misery, right? Which are not like ours, but still they suffer. But one who understands the real constitutional position, he engages in transcendental service. Consequently, he becomes qualified to enter into the Vaikuntha planets, where there is neither material miserable life nor influence of time and death. To know one's constitutional position means to know also the sublime position of the Lord. Very nice. One who wrongly thinks that the living entity's position and the Lord's position are on the same level is to be understood to be in darkness and therefore unable to engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord. Because if we think that we are equal to the Lord, then we are doing devotional service to ourselves. So we don't engage in devotional service. He becomes a Lord himself and thus paves the way for repetition of birth and death. Basically, Mayavadis. But one who, understanding that his position is to serve, transfers himself to the service of the Lord, at once become eligible for Vaikuntha Loka. Service for the cause of the Lord is called Karma Yoga or Buddhi Yoga, or in plain words, Bhakti Seva. So please remember, one becomes free from cycle of birth and death by engaging in devotional service and enter Vaikuntha Goloka. So Bhakti is the only way. Okay, so we'll do this last verse and then rest of it is Stita Pragna, which we'll continue next week. Yada te moho kalilam buddhir vyatitarishyati tatagantasi nirvedam shrotavyasya shrutasya cha. When your intelligence has passed out of the dense forest of delusion, you shall become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is to be heard. So Krishna has given the conclusion already, right? So now our intelligence should have passed out the dense forest of delusion. Because now we are not deluded anymore, because we are very clear that bhakti yoga is the way, and that we, by practicing bhakti yoga, devotees in the past have gone back to Vaikuntha. So our intelligence should have now passed out of the dense forest of delusion, moha. And now we know the conclusion. We know bhakti yoga is the way, and now it's all about just focusing our energies on executing it with full zeal. So there is we don't have to hear anything else. As in, we don't have to go and try and find a new way of achieving perfection, or somebody said something else, this, that, and all. Nothing. We don't need anything else. We are now clear of the path. So we have to become indifferent of all that is to be heard. Indifferent, not about information, knowledge about Krishna, but about other paths, karma, gnana, or obligations, this, that, Veda says this, Veda says that. So many things are there. We become indifferent to all that, because now we are clear about the goal of our life and we fix on that path. There are many good examples in the lives of the great devotees of the Lord, of those who have become indifferent to the rituals of the Vedas, simplified devotional service. When a person factually understands Krishna and his relationship with Krishna, he naturally becomes completely indifferent. Factually understands. So we have to factually understand that, I'm a servant of Krishna, and engage ourselves in the service of Krishna, and then we become completely indifferent to the rituals. Sri Madhavendra Puri, a great devotee and acharya in the line of devotee, says, Sandhya Vandanam Bhadram Astu Bhavato Bho Snana Tubhyam Namo Bho Bho Deva Pitarascha Tarpana Vidho Naham Kshama Kshama Khamyatam Yatra Kwapi Nishad Yadava Kulottamasya Kamsat Vishaha Smaram Agam Harami Tad Alam Manye Kimanye Name. Oh, my prayers 3 times a day, all glory to you. Oh, bathing, I offer my obeisances unto you. Okay, not that from tomorrow we stop bathing. Oh, demigods, so far forefathers, please excuse me for my inability to offer my respects. Now, wherever I sit, somebody who comes to this platform, wherever I sit, I can remember the great descendant of the Yadu dynasty, Krishna, the enemy of Kamsa, and thereby I can free myself from all sinful bondage. I think this is sufficient for me. So of course, then question is, till we come to this stage of wherever I sit, whatever I do, remember Krishna, what happens to our rituals? So we do whatever is recommended for sadhakas and not get into serious like karma kanda. And there are some regulations, and of course for that we should also have a good understanding of Hari Bhakti Vilas, which kind of outlines all these practices for practicing Vaishnavas. And then we should try and follow those. So, for example, one of them is the Shada ceremony, which is recommended. Otherwise, we should surrender to Nama Prabhu and completely, Kirtanam. We don't have to necessarily engage in any other Vedic rites and rituals. The Vedic rites and rituals are imperative for neophytes, comprehending all types of prayer 3 times a day, taking bath in the early morning, offering respects to forefathers, etc. But when one is fully in Krishna consciousness and is engaged in his transcendental loving service, one becomes indifferent to all these regulative principles because he has already attained perfection. If one can reach the platform of understanding by service to the Supreme Lord, he has no longer to execute different types of penances and sacrifices as recommended in the revealed scriptures. And similarly, if one has not understood that the purpose of Vedas is to reach Krishna and simply engage in rituals, then he is uselessly wasting time in such engagements. Persons in Krishna consciousness transcend the limit of Shabda Brahma, the range of Vedas and Upanishads. So this applies to whom? Actually, we should understand this, right? So if we have any desire for sense gratification, then we fall into this category of, like somewhat neophytes, right? Like, while, yeah, I mean, we are still that way Kanishta Adhikaris, but we at least we should be, we should have the sincere desire to become a pure devotee, and we should be working towards it. And one who is completely dependent on the Lord, then he doesn't have to follow all these other Vedic rites and rituals because it's distracting. It just takes away time. But yeah, if you are doing lukewarm bhakti, then we might have to follow some of these. But if you are doing tivra bhakti, we may not have achieved still perfect stages, but we are very serious about practicing bhakti, about making progress, etc. Then we can think that we are transcended the limit of Shabda Brahma. But the right person to guide us on this is our Guru. And based on Guru's instructions, we have to follow. Because sometimes we might be overestimating ourselves in terms of what we should do, what we should not do, etc. But Guru will know our standing in bhakti, and accordingly he might recommend, some things to be done, some things not to be done, etc. Okay, but the important part is that by now we have understood that the goal of life is Krishna bhakti, and we become indifferent to generally other things which are not helping us progress on the path. And yeah, Vedic rites and rituals, like I said, it's possibly under the guidance of Guru to understand what we should be doing and what we should not be doing. Okay, so I think we'll stop there. Oh, okay. This is one last verse. Okay. Shruti vipratipanna te yada stasyati nischala samadha vachala buddhis tada yogam avapsyasi. When your mind is no longer disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, and when it remains fixed in the trance of self-realization, then you will have attained the divine consciousness. So this is sthita prajna or samadhi, right? Because one is fixed in trance of self-realization. So samadhi, Krishna Prabhupada explains what samadhi. To say that one is in samadhi is to say that one has fully realized Krishna consciousness. That is, one in full samadhi has realized Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. The highest perfection of self-realization is to understand that one is eternally servant of Krishna, and that's one only business is to discharge one's duties in Krishna consciousness. A Krishna conscious person or unflinching devotee of the Lord should not be disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, nor be engaged in fruitive activities for promotion to heavenly kingdom. In Krishna consciousness, one comes directly into communion with Krishna, and thus all directions from Krishna may be understood in that transcendental state. So till we come into this transcendental state, like I said, we have to surrender to Guru and follow his instructions. One is sure, even after that we should follow, but here we don't even understand what it is. What are the directions from Krishna? One is sure to achieve results by such activities and attain conclusive knowledge. Results by such activities, which is activities in full Krishna consciousness. Attain conclusive knowledge. One has to carry out the orders of Krishna or his representative, the spiritual master. So this is the key. In all these, areas where it looks like too transcendental for us, where it's not very clear that 1 + 1 = 2. In all such scenarios, we should not try to speculate. We should simply surrender to Guru and put these situations in front of Guru and take Guru's advice to do whatever we need to be doing. But Krishna is saying that, okay, if you follow this, you remain fixed in the trance of self-realization, then you would have attained Sthita Prajna state, Brahma Bhuta state, right? Then actually one can achieve bhakti. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na sochati na kankshati samasarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. So this is that state of Brahma Bhuta, divine consciousness. Okay, and then going forward, there'll be discussion about what this divine consciousness is, what are the qualities of such a person, etc., which we will continue from next Wednesday, because Monday is Shri Krishna Janmashtami. We will not be having our reading session. Okay, anybody has any questions? Very silent.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So, question on the Kevala Bhakti, which Mataji was just asking.
Yeah.
I just want to understand, being in our state, which we are in right with Grihasthas, how do we come to a point where we completely do 100% bhakti, because we are working, and how do we completely come to that state?
Okay, so so I was explaining. So Kevala Bhakti, below Kevala Bhakti is working for Krishna, if that is possible, directly working for Krishna. Below that is working wherever, but using results in Krishna consciousness. So this is the first thing that we should be doing. Right now, in this state also, unfortunately, how much actually what determines progress is how much we are giving to Krishna. If we, of course, recommendation is 50%, but if we are not able to do 50%, but if we are doing 5%, then we are far from it. Right? That means either we don't have faith in Krishna, that we don't want to part from, part the earning that we have earned in Krishna service, or we have too many obligations, financial obligations. If you have too many financial obligations, then obviously, for whatever reason we got into those obligations, we have to come out of it. There is no question of progress without that, right? But if we don't have financial obligations, but we are still not parting our salary, giving significant amounts for Krishna's service, then we are attached to it, or we don't have faith in Krishna. Now, again, see this path. So, again, I'll have to just speak about, my own example and say that, we have to go to Guru. Guru has to say whether, we should give up, not give up, etc. Right? it has to be in conjunction with Guru Maharaj, right? So, but the desire has to be there, because see, there are multiple ways. Sometimes, like Guru Maharaj has said, sometimes saying, okay, you go. Somebody said, okay, I have an opportunity to go out of the country. Okay, will it help you take away all your material obligations, and say allow you to and if you can have some savings, then it can allow you to completely give up work and join full-time service. So if that is going to be possible, then do that. But in doing that, if suppose say it in the bargain kills our Krishna consciousness completely, then it's dangerous too. So these kind of situations have to be like discussed with Guru. um, uh, but either way, right, there has to be a desire. First saying that see, we have to anyway put a cutoff time, right? Like Vanaprastha has to happen. It can't be that I keep on continuing in this Grihastha ashram forever, right? So children, whatever, get rid of, finish our responsibilities, then quickly move into Vanaprastha. Now Vanaprastha is the ultimate cutoff, right? Where one has to start Kevala Bhakti by then, which means that by Vanaprastha, one has to kind of sort out one's life. If somebody can do it before Vanaprastha, before the age of 50, then it's Lord's mercy, and that also has to be done under the guidance of the Guru. But this thought process has to start now. So retirement thought process has to start now, right? And that retirement for us is not 60, 70 like for normal karmis, right? Like our retirement is 50. Our outer limit timeline is 50 years. So first of all, we need to figure out how are we going to get out of all our obligations by 50. What does it mean? And of course, then there are so many other practical things, right? Like for example, Varnashrama projects, simple living, high thinking, reducing our requirements, so many other supporting things that we need to think about, right? Like if our lifestyle requires us to be spending tens of thousands of rupees every month, then there's hardly any hope, right? That means that one needs to be working throughout their life, because unless you earn that kind of money, you can't spend that kind of money. So then simplifying the life is important, or at least Varnashrama projects, figuring out some place where you can kind of go and live peacefully. Living in the city is an impossible proposal, right? Prospect for long term. Because if you're living in a city, then that means expenses are high, lifestyle is bad, no association. Everything just becomes like very difficult. So yeah, all these combination of things that I mentioned, and maybe others as well, will have to be looked at. But we have to meditate on this. It's not going to happen overnight. It takes years.
Okay, given that the entire Vanaprastha system is not set up so well for us, it's difficult to like all of a sudden leave everything
And that's why I'm saying it's not all of a sudden. It's years, right? Like if you are 35, 40 now, then at least you have 10 years to plan, right? But the whole point is, see, we should understand one thing. See, we are all pioneers in Krishna consciousness, right? Like we cannot be waiting for somebody else to set the tone. We should figure out, okay, what is the best way of going about this, right? And like I said, it's not our own individual thought process, right? Then of course, for which one has to surrender to Guru first, get initiated, then Guru will give the guidance, right? But discussion, putting the clear picture in front of Guru, and then taking his instructions, and then yase prasadat Bhagavad prasad, having faith that okay, whatever Guru is saying is for my best, in my best interest, and taking it up. But if we see, Vanaprastha also simply just means that living a very simple life. For example, if you can finish all your like just husband and wife, if you can finish all your expenses within, say, just whatever little yatra, travel and food, practically you should have, one can have enough savings for that. right? And there are devotees, I mean, who have done this, and especially see advantages for at least those people who are in software. You can also look at having sufficient earnings before that happens, so that you can actually do a vanaprastha. But yeah, I mean, these things need to be thought about, work towards. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to just manifest, right? And yeah, things might not be in place, but we need to figure it out. Like I said, surrender to Guru and take his instructions.
Yeah, Prabhu.
Okay.
Oh, I had a question.
Yeah.
So it was mentioned that in Prabhupada, as mentioned in the purports, that we should not be attached by what we do, otherwise we will be having to suffer the reaction, right?
Yeah.
So what is the relationship between the reactions and the state of work? So if we have thought something about attachment, is that considered as a reactionary work, or unless we don't do action, it will not be taken? And I think in Kali Yuga, it is the state that we have to do some activity with some thought to get reactions. But in other yugas, even the thought was considered as a reactionary, right?
Actually, in Kali Yuga, bad things you have to do. Good things, if you think only, you will get result. Good things, you can just simply think, you will get the results. Bad things you have to do. Simply thinking will not result. But what is your original question? I didn't understand. I thought you were.
No,
Was this your question?
I just wanted to understand that is thinking something bad? Yeah, like is it
Yeah,
reaction?
thinking something bad doesn't have any reaction in Kali Yuga.
Yeah, because sometimes no matter what we follow, these thoughts don't get removed from my
Yeah,
mind.
yeah. No, that's okay. That's okay. See, the only problem with this is that when we start thinking, at some point of time, it will convert into action. So this thinking is also dangerous that way, but we can't avoid thinking, which is why it is said actually when thoughts come, bring Krishna into the picture so that Ajnana is destroyed. But if when unnecessary thoughts come, we don't invoke Krishna's presence, then there's a high chance that it will turn into action.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else has anything? Okay. There's nothing, then we stop. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyo cha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Smaveta Gaur Bhaktavrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Okay, disconnecting.